Hey guys, it's Maddie. Welcome back to my channel, and if you are new here, then welcome. Today I will be doing my April wrap-up. I read 7 books. I had a little bit of a slower reading month, I feel like, for this month. I wasn't necessarily in a reading slump, but I just was reading books a lot more slower. There were some days when I didn't read. Some days I would. Like, it was a very odd month for me, but I'm glad I got 7 books read. And I read 2,580 pages. For the release years, I read 1 book from 2013, 2 books from 2015, 2 were from 2016, and 2 were from 2017. As for genres, I read 3 contemporary books, no surprise there. 3 paranormal romance books. I've been reading a lot more paranormal lately when I used to not. But these past months, it's just been all paranormal books for me. And I read 1 fantasy. So all the books I read were novels, except for 1. I read 1 poetry book. I have never read any poetry besides Shel Silverstein, which was a long time ago. So the fact that I read a poetry book is just like, wow, and I actually really loved this poetry book. I'm really excited to talk about it. I read 4 books on ebook, 2 were physical books, and 1 was an audiobook. I read 6 books that were by female authors and 1 was by a male author. I read 3 standalones and the rest of them were a part of a series. I read 5 young adult books and 2 were new adult. I reread 1 book this month. And as for my ratings, I had 2 3 stars, 3 4 stars, and 2 5 stars. I only did not finish 1 book this month, so pretty good. These past few months, I've just been DNFing books left and right. I just had 1 this month. This one, I do not plan to continue. As for readathons, I participated in 2, and that was the Dewey's 24-hour readathon. I didn't finish any books for that one, but I will mention the amount of pages I read for that readathon, and it was around 200. I also participated in the Unicorn Readathon. I read 1 book for that. And I can't believe I forgot to do this again, but I forgot to write down how many books I read from my original TBR. But I will put it on the screen, but I'm pretty sure I got to all of them. Like, I really stuck to my TBR, my April TBR this month. Like, really, really good. I'm pretty sure I read all of them though, so if I did, like, that is amazing, but yeah, I'll have the number up on the screen. Okay, so that's it for the stats. Let's just get into the books that I read this month. Let's start off with the DNFs. The first one is Life and Death by Stephanie Meyer. This is a spin-off book to the Twilight series. It is, if you don't know, it is a gender bend retelling of Twilight. You know, I should have took the warning about this one, because so many people, pretty much everyone who read this didn't like it. And I was like, yeah, well, I'm going to read it anyway, because, you know, I'm a fan of Twilight, so I'm like, I'm just going to read it anyway. I got pretty close to 200 pages. Like, I was almost there, but I just was so bored by it. It was so boring. Because it's a gender bend of Twilight, and it's the exact same story, just Bella and Edward are switched genders. It was the exact same story, pretty much to a T. Like, there were a few changes, but it was the exact same storyline. And it just got kind of boring for me. Like, I'm like, I'll just stick to reading Twilight if I want to reread the books, but this one is just too similar. So I kind of just really didn't care about what was going on or the characters. I feel like the characters were a huge downfall. I think the idea of having a gender bend of any story is cool, but when it feels like you're reading the exact same plot and story as the original source material, it just doesn't really work for me. I kept still thinking that Bella and Edward were in their original gender, because their gender bend characters were too much alike with them. Like, I feel like there's no difference between the original Bella and Edward and the Twilight series. With these gender bend characters, they were so much alike that I still kept thinking throughout reading this that Bella was a girl when he was a guy. I would be like, oh wait, yeah, Bella is a guy. So if I'm thinking like that, then it's just not a great gender bend. I think it could have been dealt with way better. Like I said, I think the idea of a gender bend is cool, but I feel like you still need to introduce a lot more to the reimagining that differs a lot more from the original Twilight. It was just too similar, and I found myself just bored with it and didn't feel a need to continue on, so I DNF'd it. And I really wanted to like it because I'm such a big fan of Twilight, but this one was just, no, not for me. I'm just going to forget it ever happened because I feel like it's tainting my appreciation for the original series, so I'm just going to forget that this book even exists. I also DNF'd A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas, the third book in the A Court of Thorns and Roses series. I have been rereading this series in preparation for the novella that just came out that I am currently reading and loving. More about that later, but I got into like 20 pages of ACOWAR, and I just didn't feel the need to continue on. ACOWAR is my least favorite book in the series, so that is the main reason why. And since it's such a huge book, it's almost 700 pages, I did not want to have to put myself through reading 700 pages of a book I thought was just like okay. So I thought I'm just gonna skip over A Court of Wings and Ruin, and I ended up looking up the summary of the book online just to refresh my memory on what happened, and I got plenty of information from Googling the summary of the book that I needed to continue on with the series so that I can remember what happened. So I just DNF'd this. I mean, I'm sure I will reread it again someday, but I feel like it's just too soon right now. The last time I read this book was in September or October, and that's still pretty recent. So yeah, I didn't feel like rereading it again, so I just DNF'd it. Okay, so on to my one reread for this month. That was A Court of Mist and Fury, the second book in the A Court of Thorns and Roses series, which is my favorite book in the series, so I got a blast out of rereading it again. I listened to this one on audiobook. I had been listening to it for 2 months, and I continued to listen to it in April, and I had about a little less than 150 pages left on the audiobook, so I just finished it off in April. Of course, 5 out of 5 stars. Love it. I mean, I already said it's my favorite book in the series. I love it so much. Alright, now for the rest of the books I read this month. These are ranked in order from my least favorite book of the month to my most favorite book, as always. For my least favorite book of the month, please don't hate me, guys. I'm so scared to talk about this book. But I have a good explanation about it, so just bear with me. But my least favorite book was The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. I can't believe I'm saying that. So I ended up reading this book this month because I was like, I have to read this book. I just have to start it. I keep putting it off. I need to start it because it's so popular. Everyone and their mother has read this book except for me. So I'm like, I'm going to start this book. I ended up getting to it in April, so I am very, very happy that I finally got it read because I had been putting it off for so long. My feelings on this book are kind of mixed. And I feel like I really did not give this book a fair chance because honestly, I had no background knowledge on the subject matter of this book. If you don't know, this book is inspired by the Black Lives Matter movement, and it's about this girl whose friend gets shot, her African American friend, and it causes a whole movement within the book because her friend wasn't armed with a gun. He was shot for basically no reason. So it's all about her dealing with that. So it's a very hard-hitting book. It covers such a touchy subject, but it's super popular. It's won so many awards. It's getting a movie. So based on that fact, I was like, I have to read this. So after I finished it, I was super not in love with it. And the reason why is because I sadly did not have a lot of knowledge on the Black Lives Matter movement, which is what it was inspired from. So I really did not get what was going on in the book. And I was honestly pretty much blaming her friend for getting shot because he wasn't cooperating with the police officer when they were pulled over. And I still kind of feel like he could have acted way more better in that situation. I still think, don't kill me for this because I mean this is my opinion, but I still think had he cooperated with the officer more and not talked back to him, he possibly could have still been alive. I still stand by that opinion. So I was basically, after this book, I was really mad that the police officer was getting blamed so much for self-defense because he felt like he was being threatened by this kid, because to him it looked like he was going to reach for a gun because the officer had told him to stay put, and he went back to his police car to get something, and he ended up moving to ask Star, the main character who was in the passenger seat, if she was okay. And because he did that, it startled the officer and he shot him. So that's why I'm saying I still think that her friend could have lived had he not moved. So I'm still saying it is partially his fault. Don't kill me for that opinion. But now that I've done research on the Black Lives Matter movement, I have come to realize how the situation that her friend went through is so realistic. I mean, I wish I would have done my research on the movement before I started this book, but I was just dumb for not doing that. But man, it is brutal. I mean, I watched a documentary where African Americans were getting shot for no reason. No reason whatsoever. And I'm like, that is pretty much awful. And I've been watching the news a lot more lately, and I have seen 2 instances where there have been injustices towards blacks. And I'm just like, wow, this happens so much more than I thought it did. And I feel bad for being so just blind to it. And now that I have all the background knowledge of what this movement means and that stuff like this happens so much, I really do appreciate this book and what it did. And because of that, I want to reread this book. Now knowing how realistic it is to this movement and the problems that it brings up, I want to reread it. And I think if I reread it, I will change my opinion on it. So take this opinion with a grain of salt, because it might change. But I feel like I'm going to reread this book closer to when the movie comes out, so that the book is fresh in my mind for the movie when I go see it. So there is still hope. I think I will change my opinion on this book. However, I don't see myself giving it a 5 out of 5 stars just because this book is so popular. And when a book is so hyped up as this one is, I am always less likely to not give it a 5 stars because my expectations are just too high. So if I read this again, I see myself giving it a 4 out of 5 stars next time, which is still a good rating. So I will reread this one now knowing the background information of what it's inspired from. I think I'll like it a lot more. So this is still my least favorite book of the month because I read it without doing any research on the movement that it's inspired from and just being totally naive to what was going on. So I will give it another try. And also regarding this book, you guys might have seen that I posted a review on it, a very negative review. I have since taken it down since I feel like I didn't do enough research to back my opinions on the book. I'm so stupid for not doing any research on the book before reading it. So I completely disregard anything I said in that review. And I even had a few comments under that video saying, you should have done your research before doing this review because you don't understand. And I'm like, I realize that now. So I took the video down and be like, just disregard everything I said. I will reread the book and see if my opinion still stands after doing the research on the Black Lives Matter movement. So the next book I read was a new adult book. And I read this one in participation of a book club hosted by Chelsea Darling Reads on YouTube and also Pages and Pens. I believe this is part of the Drunk Book Club, unless they have another one going on, but I'm pretty sure this is the book for that. And they read smutty new adult books. So I'm like, you know what? I'm very not familiar with that genre. I want to give it a try. See if I like it. I don't know. But I ended up reading their group book for that. And that was Professed by Nicola Rendell. This is a new adult book, as I said, about a student-teacher relationship. I have a guilty pleasure for student-teacher relationships because I love forbidden romances. So I'm like, ooh, I might like this one. The girl in it is 20 and the guy is 38. Such a huge age gap. I still don't know how I feel about that, but of course the girl was of age, so that's good. At least she wasn't 18, otherwise I've been like, this is too problematic for me. So this one was just okay, sadly. I think since this is my first smut read that I was really, really like put off by what was happening. I mean, there was sex scenes every 2 pages, and I'm like, this is a little too much. Like, I thought A Court of Thorns and Roses was bad. This is way worse. So I wasn't used to that yet. I was like, oh, this is kind of making me a little uncomfortable. It's something I have to get used to. Besides that, it was a really fun read. It was actually really funny. I really did like the characters a lot. I just felt like it was just an okay read. There were some parts of it that I felt like were a little unrealistic, and I felt like the couple in this book started to fall in love a little too quickly. And along with that, I felt like this book was too fast-paced. Too much was going on too quickly. We weren't given enough room to breathe, and maybe that's just the fact that there were sexy times every few pages. Maybe that contributes to it going way too fast. I don't know, but I just felt like this was an okay book. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. And then I saw Chelsea and Pages and Pins reviews for this book on Goodreads, and they felt the same way as I did, that it was not really good. So at least I'm not alone in that opinion. So this one was just a solid 3 stars. I will continue to read more new adult and see if I find any that is better than this one. Okay, going on to 4-star reads. The first one is, I actually have it right here, The Evolution of Mara Dyer by Michelle Hopkins. This is the second book in the Mara Dyer trilogy, and this is a series about a girl who is kind of crazy. Her friends have just died. She has a lot of PTSD from that, but she ends up seeing her friends hallucinating that they're there. She goes through a lot of crazy stuff. There's a lot of paranormal aspects throughout this series. It is a very good series. It is kind of confusing though, because in this book we have an unreliable narrator and you can't really trust everything she says. So it's hard to kind of understand what's happening in this book, if it's real or not, but it is a lot of fun. I ended up loving the second book a little bit more than the first book. Even though this one is a 4-star read for me and the first one was a 4-star, I still like this one just like a tad bit more. I liked where the direction of it was going. I'm falling in love with Noah more throughout this series. I know a lot of people love him. I love him so much. He is so great. I can't wait to read more of him and the rest of the books. He even has his own spin-off series that I need to start, but I want to finish this trilogy first. I felt like this book was a lot more creepier than the first book. Like, there was a lot of creepy stuff in this book that just had my skin crawling, which is a good thing. So I'm really excited to get to the 3rd book, finish off this series. I plan to read the 3rd book this month, and I'm pumped to see how this series ends because I am really in love with it. The next 2 books are part of the same series. They are the spin-off books to the Lex series, and that is Oblivion and Oblivion 2. Oblivion is the first book, Obsidian, told through Damon's point of view, and Oblivion 2 is Onyx, told through Damon's point of view. So I pretty much just read the first 2 books in the Lux series, reread them but from a different point of view, and I really enjoyed these. I really love Damon so much. Like, he's one of my favorite male characters. He's so awesome. So I really got a kick out of reading from his point of view. His point of view is a little different from Katie's, and I liked that his point of view felt different because there's nothing worse than reading from another character's point of view. And the way they speak and everything is no different from the original point of view, so I really appreciated that his point of view was a lot different. He had a lot more different things to give to the story. I gave both of these books 4 stars. The reason they're not 5 stars for me is that I felt like the problem with reading through Damon's point of view is that it takes a lot of the mystery out of it, since in these books, Damon is the main source of the mystery because he is an alien and Katie doesn't know that. So I really liked following Katie's point of view and seeing her come to realize like she lived next door to an alien. But when you read from Damon's point of view, he is telling you everything you need to know, so it leaves the mystery aspect out of it. So that's why I didn't enjoy his point of view as much, but I still loved reading from his POV because the way he talks and thinks in his head is so hilarious. He's so snarky, and I just love that. If you guys don't know, this is a series about a girl who moves next door to aliens that are in the form of humans, but she doesn't know they're aliens. So it's a very action-packed story. It is a paranormal romance. I would highly recommend it. I'm so in love with these books. They're by Jennifer L. Armentrout, who has become my favorite author. I'm looking forward to reading a lot more of her books, but this is one of my favorite series from her. It is so good. And now on to my favorite book I read this month. That is Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds. This is the one poetry book I read this month. And I used to think that I wasn't into poetry, but this was incredible. This is a book, or poetry book, about a boy whose brother has recently gotten shot. And he sets out to take revenge on the person he thinks shot him by going to his house and shooting him. But he hasn't done it yet. He is on the elevator down from his apartment complex or where he's staying. And each stop at this elevator, he runs into someone who has died. And he knows each of these people who has died. He's pretty much like seeing their ghost, or he's hallucinating that he's seeing them. And each person gives him insight as to why he shouldn't go through with killing this guy who he thinks killed his brother. This one was very, very hard-hitting. It takes such a touchy subject matter that is gun violence, and the way it goes over that subject matter is so enlightening. It pretty much, the message of this poetry book is that gun violence or violence in general isn't the answer. What's it going to solve if you take revenge on the person who supposedly killed your brother? Does that make you any better than them? I just really like the questions brought out. It really just made me think, and I really enjoy books that make me think like that. And I think I like this poetry book because the way it's told like a story, but it's written in verse. So there is like a few lines of text on one page. So because of that, it was very easy to fly through this book. I read it pretty much in an hour in one sitting, maybe a little over an hour. I read it in a day, and I never read books in a day, but because this one is written in verse, it was really easy to just fly through it. And I enjoyed it so much. Love the themes that it brought out about gun violence. I would highly recommend this one. And I, of course, gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. So those are the books that I read in April. I hope you guys enjoyed this wrap-up. Please don't hate me for my opinion on The Hate U Give. I am going to reread it, as I said, and I think when I reread it, I will change my whole thinking and outlook on the book. Let me know in the comments what books you guys read this month. I would really like to know. And if you like this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe down below for more bookish related videos. Also, be sure to click